What books am I excited to read in 2026? This is the question on nobody's lips save my own and a couple of people who happen to watch my channel. Today I'm going to go through the books I can't wait to get to, and maybe you'll add them to your own TBR. Starting off with the first few titles on my list, isn't it annoying when guys on YouTube give you recommendations and the only recommendations they can ever give you are for these massive books with over 1,000 pages that you're just sort of thinking, I'm never going to get to that. Well, you haven't heard that from me because my first title is Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace. This is the most epic, gargantuan, tome-like thing that I've ever laid my eyes upon, and I cannot wait to get to it. I've read a couple of works from Tolstoy. I read one of his collections of short stories, which is called 23 Tales, and then I read his collection of novellas, which is called Childhood, Boyhood and Youth. I think that his prose is very dry in its stylings. However, when he was talking about nature, I cannot fully explain to you how exquisite that was. So I'm very excited to get to his much larger and grandiose works. For those of you who don't know what War and Peace is about, somehow it's fairly obvious from the title, so use your brain.
You're an idiot.
War and Peace is set in the early 19th century and tells of glittering cocktail parties and high society. During these parties, conversation is dominated by the prospect of war, and then war arrives. This is in the form of Napoleon's army invading Russia. What you get with this novel are utterly contrasting time periods and the lives of three men who are forever changed. I am so excited to get to this novel. It is enormous. It will take me probably 2 or 3 months to read it fully, should I dedicate myself to it. This year gone, I've come to really enjoy reading long books. It's the idea of sitting with a book, living in its world and letting it sort of wash over you very slowly, rather than enjoying it as a much more consumable type of thing. And because of that, you come to know the characters much more as familiars. You know the world, you know the prose, it really lingers. So I cannot wait to get to this. And continuing on from that, for the second title on this list, isn't it annoying when guys just give you long book recommendations? Anyway, Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. There is so much talk of Anna Karenina. So many people say it is better than War and Peace, but it is a self-destructive love story, a tragic one of its titular character, Anna Karenina, and her affair with Count Vronsky. Am I pronouncing that right? Count Vronsky, the impetuous officer, so says the blurb. The opening line of Anna Karenina is one of the most iconic lines in literature. All happy families are alike. Each unhappy family is unhappy in its own way, which is a brilliant way to surmise it. I'm hoping that Tolstoy's wisdom and his writing and his beautiful nature writing and character descriptions, which is the other thing in his novellas that I talked about previously, that I really loved, is that certain characters like Karl Ivanich really stuck in the mind and had such compelling monologues and histories to them that were beautifully expounded upon. I'm so excited for these really big tomes. I've been thinking about it for months, and I can finally say that I'm doing it, so I'm really excited to get to those books. There's the Tolstoy. Now we can actually move on to something else. Isn't it annoying when guys recommend long books?
Boring!
Especially Russian literature. Oh, so many. Oh, Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, it's awful when we talk about this. This is Dostoevsky's The Idiot. I am self-aware enough to realise that my first few recommendations have been the most stereotypical, oh, have you read Russian literature? You should really give it a go. However, I am sincere when I say I am excited about these. My relationship with Dostoevsky's work began last year and continues to this day to excite me. I read Crime and Punishment, which was the first work of his. That's not true, actually. I'm lying to you.
Well, he's not being a hypocrite, and that's the worst part.
The first work of Dostoevsky that I ever read was his very short story, White Nights, which is a beautiful tale of sort of unrequited love. Very tragic, very Russian, very cynical, but also hopeful. It's a strange one to think about. And then I read Crime and Punishment, and I really liked it. A very haunting book. And then I read The Brothers Karamazov, and that is, if not my favourite book, absolutely up there. So now I'm moving on to read The Idiot. I was watching a lot of video essays about Dostoevsky's work because I just found him fascinating, and as a fellow epilepsy sufferer, I can relate. The Idiot was really interesting to me because it was born out of Dostoevsky's desire to create a character who was utterly beautiful and totally human in his instincts. And what this has produced is the book The Idiot, in which a character is so good-natured and so open-hearted that people around him perceive him to be an idiot, lacking intelligence, lacking insight, that type of thing. So it's a really fascinating concept, and I'm so interested to get to it. And also, there was an excerpt of The Idiot that I listened to in one of these video essays that I'd watched, in which it talks about a man's experience with capital punishment, which, if you know Dostoevsky's life, is very autobiographical. Dostoevsky was held in a prison camp in Siberia and was put up to a mock execution in which he was bound to a post and blindfolded and thought he was very much going to die until they pulled the rug out from under his eyes and it was revealed to be a ruse. That experience is harrowingly rendered in this book, from what I've read, and I cannot wait to explore the story in full. But let us continue with something completely different. Isn't it annoying? Done with that.
Welcome back!
This is The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. This is a very compact edition. It's quite long still, and the text is minuscule. These little black dots, pockmarked almost. And this is a book in which a black man... black man... Ralph Ellison's tale of The Invisible Man of the title is a story of social invisibility, persecution, racism, injustice. I could go on. I spoke about it previously in one of my earliest videos and I tried to read it. I spent, let's say, a week reading it and I got about 100 pages or something like that in. Because I wasn't making progress quickly enough, I couldn't feel like I was moving through it. Then I just stopped. And that tells you where my mindset was at the time, because now I'm so excited to take this slowly and appreciate it. Ellison and this story have always intrigued me and I'm very excited to get to it again. For context for this next title, you'd have heard me talk about this author in my previous video, My Favourite Books of 2025, when I talked about their debut work, Satan Tango. So I am talking about Laszlo Krasznahorkai, and the book I am excited to read in 2026 is Seiobo There Below. For rhythm and musicality, the title, Seiobo There Below, is glorious. It's so fun to say. In terms of the reasoning as to why I want to read this one specifically, firstly, it is the only one that Krasznahorkai said he still likes, which if you look at interviews with him and if you read magazine articles and pieces on him, he only intended to ever write one novel. Every time he would write a novel, he would go back to it and find mistakes, and therefore he had to write another novel to correct himself upon that. And so, Seiobo There Below is the only novel that he says he still likes and he cannot find mistakes in it. I picked this up in a shop and I read the first few sentences. No, that's not true actually. I read the first paragraph or so and I was absolutely awestruck. It's this beautiful passage in which he writes about the movement of a body of water. I want to read it to you because it's just extraordinary. I'm not going to read the whole thing because this is a 2 and a bit page sentence, but I want to read just to give you a flavour of what this is like. Everything around it moves, as if just this one time and one time only, as if the message of Heraclitus has arrived here through some deep current from the distance of an entire universe, in spite of all the senseless obstacles, because the water moves. It flows, it arrives, and cascades. Now and then the silken breeze sways, the mountains quiver in the scourging heat.
Bloody hell!
The density and the flow and the rhythm of this scent, it's extraordinary. I'm delighted to get to read more of his stuff. I have every single one of his novels now, and I can't wait to get through them. Final one on my list. We're already here, can you believe it? Isn't it annoying? Isn't it annoying when guys just constantly talk about how Russian literature is the best thing ever? You've never heard it from me, because The Master and Margarita is the final one on my list. This is written by Mikhail Bulgakov. The Master and Margarita is a typically surreal premise from Mikhail Bulgakov. This novel tells of the devil's visit to the Soviet Union, and the devil takes the form of a large black cat named Professor Voland, and he brings with him many eccentric characters. I'm going into this fairly blind actually, that is essentially what I know of the novel. I want to read it because it is meant to be Bulgakov's best work. I really love Bulgakov's prose, his humour, it's so dry and very funny. Very much British in that sort of way. It reminds me a lot of British humour. I'm just really excited to get to this. It's the novel that Bulgakov essentially died for. If I loved Heart of a Dog so much, I'm sure I will really love this. It's an incredibly short list, I know, but I fear I'm not going to get to too many books this year just because everything that is on my list is so long. On the Tolstoy books, I think I will make videos on them, so if you'd like to join me for those journeys, do stick along. I'm going to make a new series on really big books that I'm reading, so stay tuned for that and you'll find out more at the time. But for now, I thank you very much for watching, I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you when I'm talking about something else. Ta-ta!